Hello, friends. I was browsing YouTube looking at Ka-50 tutorial videos, and a lot of them are old. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but very few feature the beautiful new updated cockpit that part of the 2.5.6 update. And the other thing that's kind of lacking out there is a proper tutorial, showing a proper start. And going back and forth on whether I want to be that guy. And I decided, I'm going to go ahead and be that guy. Um, I'm an actual gun pilot in real life. I fly Apaches, and for those, you can play DCS as if it were a game, and you can just flip on all the switches and just start the damn thing. And I've seen some tutorials about that, and that's fine. Why not, probably much faster, but people have different mileage on what they want to get out of their simulators, if you will. And for all the sweaty, nerdy types like myself that want a grounded, realistic experience, I'm gonna aim to make a series of videos, doing just that, the Ka-50. So I'm gonna start with the cold start. How to properly crank a Ka-50 from a cold state. So, like I said earlier, I am a sweaty nerd, just like a lot of people out there on the internet. Been playing DCS about a year. Ka-50 was one of my very first modules, and got into the documentation of it all. There is a checklist there, but I went ahead and took that checklist and kind of developed my own based on it, and turned it into a kneeboard file for the module itself, which we'll bring up here. And what I did was I kind of shifted around some items, made it flow in a way that makes a little more sense to me based on my experiences. So, hey, let's get into it. So here's my checklist, broken down into subsections. Just hopped in your cockpit here before starting the APU. Well, let's get started. So before starting the APU, step 1, step 2, bat 1 switch on, bat 2 switch on. Pretty much look 45 degrees in the far right corner of your cockpit, wall panel all the way forward on the right side. Got bat 2, bat 1, flip those switches up, close the covers, right? Step 3, the interior lighting. The reason I put that here is there are night missions, and if you hop into a cockpit, whether selecting one of the night missions in the campaign or the list of one-off missions that DCS World has for each module, might be night. You hop into a dark cockpit, you fumble around for those 2 battery switches. Now you can look over your left shoulder, the back left wall panel. You have this little switch here that will turn on this light, which will illuminate the cockpit so you can see, and also some other lighting for nighttime. You have your panel HSI, ADI right here. This switch, if you flip it up, basically backlights all the labels on all the cockpit instrumentation. Then you also have, to the left of that, MVG. Turn that on. That's your floodlights. Gives a soft blue hue on basically on all the cockpit instruments and panels and all that. So we'll turn those off. It is daytime. We don't need this on. But that's for if you're hopping into a cold Ka-50 at night. Next step is a cron switch to operation. So we're going back and right on the back right wall panel down. Ecron, hydraulic transmission power. We're going to flip this switch down. It's one of the few switches that go down to turn it on. We're going to close that cover. Basically, the Ecron is your health monitoring system. This should, master caution light should illuminate like it is. Click that, indicating that system's on, and then your Ecron window is to the right of your HUD base on the right side there. And it has the accompanying bitch and Betty, if you will. If you're up English cockpit, the female voice with a Russian accent. Probably heard it yelling "Watch a cron" at you before. and that's what that system is. So next is your intercom switch. I should probably reword that to just, hey, comm switches as desired. So turn on, at this point, I just turn on all your radios. Intercom being important so you can talk to your ground crew. So the next step is your radio select knob. Going to go ground crew. Reason that's there, if you look at the next step, HMD or NVG mounted the helmet as desired. Hey, like I said, if it's night, go to open up your comm menu, ground crew. You also might want to rearm refuel at this point, so you can start that going. And then changing your helmet mounted device, this option here. DCS and the live servers, the live multiplayer servers right there are pretty good about if it's night, it's automatically set to NVGs, and if it's day, it's automatically set to your HMS site, which is, you know, there's power running to it yet, but this is where you set those up. But hey, maybe you have a day out night return mission where you're heading into the FARP, it's about to be sunset, you need to switch out your devices. This is where you switch out your HMS for NVGs. Anyway, moving on. Select the comm menu here. Next step, fire suppression system tests. So like I said, I based this off the checklist that was included with the module. That was part of the illusion. The thing is, you can't actually test it. I don't know if you could in the old cockpit, if this switch was clickable. Maybe there's a binding to it, but just turn it on. Right click, flip it up to operational. Your fire suppression system now is on. Alright, so now we're going to get to starting the APU. So the fuel quantity switch. Our tank should be full, so those needles probably aren't going to move. So turn that on. It should provide power to that instrument there. F and A stands for forward, aft tanks, and your fuel tanks. And the next two steps, APU shutoff valve switch open. So your fuel shutoff valve's right wall panel to the right of your fuel quantity switch. You have one labeled APU. Flip the cover open. Flip the switch up. Leave the cover open because we're going to turn that off before we take off anyway, after the engines are started. Let's go to the next page. Forward boost pump switch and aft boost pump switch, both on. So fuel pumps right here, forward and aft. Flip those up. Hear a little electronic whine behind your head, which we did. And the starter select switch is now over on your left side console here. Left side, zoom in. The four-way switch right here. Left, down and right, up to the turbo gear, and then centered. You want the center one for the APU, as it's labeled there on the left side, or the APU start. So now we can press the start button. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So up and to the left of that selector, start selector switch is the start button. We're going to go ahead and start the APU. We're going to come down to the left here. Watch one, oil pressure is norm light come on, and increase in the APU exhaust temperature there. Increase about 750, 720-ish, and then drops down to 620 for a normal operation. There it is. And APU is started. So now that our APU started, next section on our checklist after the APU start, canopy, we're going to close. You can't click anything to close your canopy here, so you have to have a binding for it. So, canopy's closed, exterior, interior lighting, or lights as desired. So, it's not nighttime. We don't need to make any adjustments. Maybe if it's nighttime, here's where you can start readjusting your interior lights. But I put exterior lights for nighttime in here because you might want to let other aircraft know you're on a ramp taxiway in the FARP. They can't see you. You don't want to have an accident and have someone accidentally land on you. So turn on our position lights, navigation lights up there to full bright. That's just my technique, and you don't have to do that. That's why the checklist says as desired. Here we go back to radio select knob. That's just so, hey, you got some wingmans, or you're doing a mission with other live players or whatever. Start talking. That's just there to remind you. Set up your radios as desired. INU power switch and INU heat switch. So we're going to go back to our back right wall panel again. back behind our right shoulder. INU switch, turn on. INU heat, switch on. I don't know what DCS, if DCS really takes that into consideration if it's cold. Maybe they do, but even if it's warm, I turn that heat on anyway. I've always turned it on just in case. I've never had it affect anything. So next step, Kilo 041 power switch. Basically navigation and targeting system. I think it's called like the Rubicon system. It's this switch right here. And when we flip that on, you're going to see all the red flags go away and all the uncaging navigational equipment up here, indicating that that is all good to go. Next thing, we're going to go to the right side. Look at our fancy Abris, our advanced moving map system. Little computer here on the right side. Flip up the power switch and it will go through its boot up procedure. And the final thing on this section is the standby attitude indicator switch. This switch right here, right side wall panel, standby SAI on. So before starting engines, we're going to stay over here on this right wall panel, and anti-collision beacon is right here. We're going to turn it on. It's proper etiquette, I think, in most places, that if you're about to crank your engines, unless you're in a real tactical environment, you want to let people know you're cranking your engines, your blades are about to start spinning. So, that is courtesy, we turn on our anti-collision lights there. Let them know our blades are about to start spinning. So back in the cockpit we go. Rotor brake release. So our engines will not start if our rotor brake is engaged. Our rotor brake, if you look to your left, underneath your engine cutoff valves, which are these red handles here, go down below that, you'll see a black knob handle. We want that in the down position, and that will release your rotor brake. Since we're looking down and left anyway, the next step is collective fold down. So there's our collective. I'm going to bring it full up and back to fold down. Make sure that's all the way down. Now let's get into starting engines. We're going to go back to that start selector switch, left side console. We are starting with our left-hand engine first, our number 1 engine, left side number 1, right side number 2. I think that's how the majority of aircraft are broken down. Starts on left-hand engine there. Left engine shutoff valve. We're going to go back to our right wall panel. To the right of the fuel pump section, to the fuel shutoff valves. Fuel left. We're going to open that cover, flip that switch up, close the cover. And that switch is now on. The EEG governor. So if we go back further right, or further back on that right wall panel, we have our governor switches, which label an engine control section. EEG, flip the left-hand side cover open, flip that left-hand switch up, close the cover. Next page of the checklist. Now we're going back to our start button. So engine start sequence. Get a little busy here, so we're going to start with the start button here. We're going to go to the right side, the forward right panel. So start, and we're going to look at our engine instrumentation here. Increase in EGT. Increase number 1 engine, left-hand engine on the RPMs there for engine number 1 as the starter is engaged. As it reaches 20%, which is at 20, we're going to look left and open our left engine cutoff valve, which is this left side of red handle. As we do that, we're going to go back, cockpit instrumentation. I kind of zoom out here, right? So we're going to see an increase in the EGT, increase in the RPMs of the engine. And if you look at my very bottom right of my screen here, got that start valve light on. Starter's engaged. It will drop out at about 60 to 62% RPM, that engine. So if you watch, it's about to reach there. Start light goes out. Engine reaches idle speed, 72% RPM. And the TGTs will decrease and settle. And that is a good start on the left-hand engine. So now we go back to our start selector switch. We're going to do the same thing over with the right-hand engine. So starter selector switch to right hand. Go back to our fuel shutoff valves, right, flip that cover open, flip the switch up, close the cover. Then go back further along that right wall panel. Right hand governor, cover open, flip the switch up, close the cover. Then we're gonna go back to our starter button. So here, start button. Back to the right side, watch our increase in EGT, increase in RPM. Wait for the RPM to reach 20%. Then we're gonna go back. It's getting there, getting there. It's at 20% now. Open our right hand cutoff valve. Introduce fuel to the engine. As you can see, the rapid increase in EGT. And we just slowly watch. Again, the starter light is on. Starter valve light. It will shut off at 60 to 62%. The engine RPM, the turbine. So it's about there. Start lights out. Engine reaches idle speed, 72-ish percent RPM. All right. Engine 2, right-hand engine, is start. Next step, so as we've gone through that, I went through all these steps here. Step 11, left and right engine throttle levers set to auto, right? So if we go back to our collective section here, you have these yellow handles here. You cannot click them. You have to have a binding. So whatever your binding is for throttle up, throttle down, I'm going to click my throttle up button twice, once, twice, and that sets the engine's speeds to auto. We'll go to the next page now. Shut down the APU. Monitor the APU temperature. So we're going to go back over here to our right side, left side, sorry. Starter button, right? Go 2 to the right. You got your APU shut off with a red ring around it. We're going to click that. We're going to hear the APU shut off. See the APU temperature decrease. Our APU shut off. The final thing is to close the fuel shut off valve to the APU. So we're going to close that switch, close the cover. Now we're up to our systems checks. So for the generators to work, and the systems that run off the generators, the engines have to be at auto, be at a higher speed than the idle speed of 72. So right now they're at 82. We're going to go ahead and turn on our generators. Oh, there's my HMS that I accidentally turned on earlier. And it turns on all the systems, mainly your weapon systems. As you saw there, my helmet mounted display light was driven by the generator, or powered by the generator. So Schwall is on, and all that stuff's on. Then, as we're looking right here, our standby attitude indicator. So real quick about the standby attitude indicator. We flipped the switch on and provided that power earlier on our right wall panel. It's got a red flag there, so we're gonna turn this knob here, uncage it, red flag goes away. This is our standby. So our primary artificial horizon is on our left side here with our flight instrumentation section there. Our standby is to our right. On the right side. Alright, so next thing on the checklist is a warning. Basically this warning is, hey, if it's cold outside, consider turning on your anti-ice systems. One issue with DCS that's not quite real is that no matter what, if it's cold, icing, you get icing buildup on the Ka-50, at least on the Ka-50. I'm not sure about other modules, but if you don't have your engine anti-ice switch on in anything less than like about 5 degrees Celsius temperature, you're gonna notice it and it builds up ice. But the problem with that is you have to have visible moisture in the air for your aircraft to build up ice. So it could be a 5 degree or a 0 degree day or less, but if there's no sleet, rain, fog, whatever, moisture in the air, ice isn't going to build, but whatever. So where do we look for our outside air temperature? Well, our gauge is up to our left above our head, and that's this gauge here. I'll zoom in on it. Let me look. Yeah, I'll leave it right there. It's about, looks like 20, 21 degrees Celsius, which for all you Americans like myself out there, unfamiliar with Celsius, Fahrenheit, What, 21 times 2, 42, add 32, so it's like 70 to 75 degrees outside. It is plenty warm outside. Oh, crack our went a little wonky there, sorry about that. Oh, do we need our anti-ice systems on for where we're at right now? No, but if that said 5 degrees or less, we're gonna look above our heads, above our advisory lights here, and here's our engine anti-ice switch. So you have a dust protector, and you have an engine anti-ice option here. Leave it centered, it leaves both those off, right? Rotor anti-ice is here, turn that on, turn it off. Again, anything less than 5 degrees Celsius. Look at your outside air temperature gauge above your head there to the left to see what the outside air temperature is. So next step, hold mode channel. So we're gonna go on our bottom right console here, the 5 blue buttons, right? 4 hold mode channels and your flight director. The 3 I like to turn on before takeoff are heading, bank, pitch, hold. Everyone has their own technique for how they use these. This is just mine. So I go ahead and turn those on. I leave altitude hold off because I'm taking off. I wait till I get to an altitude a desired altitude before, if I decide to even turn it on. For the most part, I don't turn that on. What's next? The ejection system. So there's 3 switches. So if you go up from the 5 blue buttons for your hold modes, you've got your ejection system and 3 switches. So flip that red and black striped cover open, put those 3 switches up, and close the cover. Powering your ejection system. While we're looking down and right, our nav master switch knob operational is this rotary dial here underneath the PVI 800. You want to flip that to operational. That turns on this system. Waypoint 1 is up. And then we also, while we're there, turn on our data link little switch there. So at this point, if you're just flying a training mission and not going into combat, you can take off at this point. The next 4 steps, the reason I have a little chevron there is there's an expanded checklist that I have not written up, but those are systems that if you absolutely need them, you can set them up now. But this is just, you can stop here if you're just going to just go fly around, if you will, and don't plan on using weapons, don't plan on running into any enemy and whatnot. But I'll quickly go over the final 4 steps here. So your data link as desired. So if you're flying a mission or on a server or doing one of the campaign missions where you have your AI wingman, you can set your data link up here, down there, wingman, say wingman 2, wingman number 2, and then on your ABRIS you'll see all the data link icons on the map there. Next step is your L140, your laser warning receiver. Upper left side, that's this little box up here to your up and to your left underneath your data link buttons. How you turn that on is back right wall panel. The 2 ACE systems, or aircraft survivability systems. Your L140 is right here. We'll flip that on or up for operational. And then the next up, your UV26 countermeasures, set as desired. The way to turn that on, the middle switch, flip it up, close the cover. And if you look to the opposite of your laser warning receiver, you have another box with your flare counts, and it's your technique how you program your flares. That's for a whole nother tutorial. That's where that is. The final thing is your weapons, which is important because I will say when I was learning the Ka-50, I would always forget to hit this switch. This provides us the power to all your weapon systems. If you look on your center console here, your weapon panel, now I can action all the weapons, check, make sure they work. I also just go through here and set the options that I want. You can also flip up your gun, make sure that's working, and reset. The final weapon switch I turn on, I go ahead and turn on my laser now just so I'm not trying to fumble around for it when I'm actually out trying to shoot something and forget to turn it on. So I go ahead and turn that on. So that is the final step, and we're ready to go. So hope that was a little helpful. It does, you know, it is a proper run-up. Does take a lot longer. I have seen those YouTube videos that just turn on all the switches and yeah, sure, you know, it saves time. But this, you know, everyone's like I said, has different mileage they want from their DCS simulator module. So this is for the realistic startup procedure. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you guys are interested in seeing more, I plan on doing more technical stuff with the Ka-50. I really enjoyed learning this module for sure. And nope, I don't plan on doing anything. Set the brakes there, but please leave a comment if you have a suggestion. Like, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. And let me know if you enjoyed this and got anything out of it. Until next time, see you around.